first thing that's really important to understand about the logic behind the CoTranslator main app user interface is that there are two ways to handle context. Because as you know, ChatGPT remembers a context within a single interaction, series of interactions, and it remembers previous stuff that you've discussed and questions you've had and what you've had the topic on. And in many cases, that's extremely useful. But in many cases, it's not, because if it's still remembering context from your last question, that can actually contaminate the results of your next one. So if you had trained it, done a little bit of a training routine for a translation, but now you've changed subjects or you want something not related to that, it's best to start a new chat or a new discussion and lose the previous context. So the way that the interface is set up is you've got the two top windows. You've got the instructions window and the segment window. Now those go together. There is no meaningful difference between them as far as the AI is concerned. You could put your segment in the instructions window. You could put your you could put your segment and instructions at the top and completely ignore the segment window when you're working manually. Now, the segment window has another use as well, but for now, you can put it all in the instructions window and ignore the segment window when you're doing it manually. And then you're going to hit Control Enter, which is different than the web interface. The web interface, Enter, will submit to the AI. In CoTranslator, Control Enter submits to the AI. And every time you submit from the top window, it starts the context over. So it remembers nothing from before. Okay, so that's an important point to remember. However, there's one more entry box in the bottom. The bottom is where the output comes back from the AI, and it shows up in a list of responses and prompts, that a history of your chat. And even though you keep repeating from the top, it still continues in the bottom to scroll through your past responses, even when the context is not being maintained. But if you want to maintain context with your last prompt, you can submit your question, your prompt, in the ad hoc box in the bottom section here, and I'm going to show it to you in a minute here. And then context is maintained. So let me just do a couple things here. So for example, change the following to capital letters, for example. All right, and so now you can this is great, and submit that, and then you can say I like that too. And when I did, now if I submit it, like I said, I submit it again here, it's a totally new context. It remembers nothing of what happened before. But if you come down here and you say here, do that again, it will remember, and it will, of course, in this case, it just did capital letters again, but still. So this is a critical logic point that you must understand to make full use of the app. All right. So this is just repeating it because I guess I thought it was important enough. So you structured input is for repeat discrete operations. It clears the context for each operation. The ad hoc at the bottom saves context. I just repeated myself about 5 times. Fine. All right. So if there's any questions, just stop me, but I'll keep going. So there's a few more little features on the interface just to know about. You can change the size of the font size through the view menu. It'll increase or decrease the fonts from there. Also, every response from the AI is automatically copied to your clipboard. So you don't have to individually, if you're trying to paste that into another application you're working in, whether it be Word, whether it be your CAT tool, whatever it is, it's automatically saved to your clipboard. So you don't actually have to use this copy button very often. But should you want to, for example, you know, maybe the answer it gave me here, it should be on my clipboard already, but let's say I would now like to go back and copy this one from up here. Well, the copy button would now copy that to my clipboard. So whatever so this is great. Yeah, see, it copied the one I did there. So that is how that button works. And then there's some at the bottom here which are well, for starters, this first one, send instructions in segment, that's exactly the same as submitting your prompt from the top. It's just a button that does the same thing as if your cursor was here and you did Control Enter. Okay. Send ad hoc instructions only is exactly the same as putting your cursor here and typing Control Enter. All right. And if you don't like the response you just got, and this happens more often than you might realize, for example, you say translate this, and then the translation you got, oh, I forgot to mention this point, I needed it like this. Well, instead of having to go back and copy and paste and start all over like you would have to do in the web interface, you just simply click this, undo previous entry. It puts it, now the last one was actually an ad hoc prompt, but okay, so this one I did it a second time, and it put the one from 2 times ago back up at the top, and now you can change it to something else without having to cut and paste. All right. Flush chat, it just basically just clears everything. So if you click flush chat, it starts you over at the bottom. It doesn't clear the top. It just clears the bottom. It also clears the memory of previous chats as well. If you wanted to keep an audit trail of what you've done, you can also, of course, you can, let's just run it so we have something. All right, copy chat to clipboard. You can then paste that onto, into in a notepad or Word or wherever you want to go with it, and you will have a record of everything that you've done since you started the program or since you last pressed flush chat. And then if you want to clear the top part, you can do clear instructions in segment. Now we're actually coming up is an update which will move these buttons in a more intuitive way to the top, but it's not ready yet. So this is where the buttons are at the moment. All right. Okay. Okay, Yuri says he finally got it to work. Fantastic. Glad to hear it. Let's see. Okay, so now we start. Yeah, so you're going to say, well, what I've talked about so far. Well, whoop-de-doo, I can do most of that already in ChatGPT, this web interface. What? I mean, I see there's a few little changes, but what really is all that different from typing your prompts here rather than doing it in the web interface? So this is where it gets interesting. This is where it gets innovative, and I like to use the word exciting. Is that we have, well, there's 2 features. The first one is the shortcuts, and the second one is going to be the prompt library and how they work together. So we'll start with these prompts. Now there's a new one. There's one more which isn't listed here, so I should have gone through and updated it. Okay, I'll cover these 2 first. So the first one, it takes any text that you have selected anywhere in Windows. So it could be in your email program, it could be in and I'll show it in a minute here. It could be in Word, it could be in Trados, it could be anywhere. And you select it and then you run Control-Shift-12 and it automatically pastes that text to the segment window of CoTranslator. Okay. Now, that's the simplest one. The second simplest one is, I'm going to just put it here just because so we'll have it in the list, is Control Shift Win. Whoops. Win F12. This is the new one. And this one copies the text, sends it to CoTranslator's segment window, and runs the current prompt. And so it sends it to the AI and you get the answer back, and the answer will sit there in CoTranslator so you can refer to it. Say you're working along and you'd like 5 synonyms for this word. Well, you run Control Shift Win F12 and you'll get 5 synonyms if that was the prompt you had up there. Okay, and then this last one though, it does one more step. You select the text. You select the text anywhere in Windows, fine. Then you do Control Shift Alt 12. It sends that text to the segment window. It runs whatever prompt was in the instructions at the top, sends that to the AI. It gets the answer back, the response back, and it automatically pastes that response in the position of the original text. So what it means is you can, and I'm going to do it in a minute here, but you can specifically, you can translate in place without having to cut and paste stuff. And I don't like to only talk about the translation application because there are an unlimited number of prompts that can be supported. If it was just a matter of translation, well, all the cat tools are putting this stuff in there with translation. But what they're not doing, what they're not doing is they're not creating an unlimited number of prompts that could be used anywhere and then could be used in the same way. So for example, let's just use what we've got over here on the clipboard right now. So we go, or I'm sorry, it's not clipboard, it's the notepad. So let's just say translate the following text to Russian. All right, so we're gonna select this text, and you can do this on your end as well while I'm going along. And the prompt is Control Shift 12, and you see that it copied that right over to the segment window. All right, so that was nice. But let's delete that and let's do it again. But this time I'm going to do Control Shift Win 12. It runs it, it sends it over, and now it runs it. Okay, so that was nice. But now we can go one step further. We select it, and this time we're going to do Control Shift Alt F12. It sends it over, sends it to the AI, and it replaced it exactly where the English had been, right? So you can do this, edit this, the following sentence for style, fix the typographical errors, and you're not limited to one line either. I mean, you can do a whole page if it'll fit into the AI. All right, so these are the preset shortcuts in CoTranslator, which can help you to speed up your work with whatever prompt you have, with whatever prompt you have in the instructions window. So I mean, this window could be, this prompt could be an anchor prompt that has everything from context to terminology to style instructions to sample reference translations. It could be a huge prompt, and still you can keep reusing it with the same shortcuts over and over again without cutting and pasting anything. All right, and of course, I had somebody in an event last week. She said, "Now, if I use these prompts, can in Trados or in a cat tool, can they detect that I'm using it?" And the answer is no. It's simply copying. It's simply copying and pasting from the Windows notepad clipboard back and forth. So it's, as far as any software you're working in, all it detects is that text was pasted in. There's no other trace that's left. as you know, I mean, until recently, whenever we use MT in a CAT tool, it detects that the that it was used, and that's what's so exciting about uh, the in my mind about this technology is we now have access. Until recently, we were given the technology to use. We were told this is the MT you're going to use, this is the tool you're going to use, and you're gonna have to stay within it. We now have direct access on our own to, frankly speaking, better technology than anybody's plugging in, and we really have a huge freedom and power in our work that we haven't really had for a long time. Joe asks, but would you still be working on a segment basis in a CAT tool? Well, that's a very good question, because frankly speaking, I'm getting out of the CAT tool more and more. I'm not going to go into it now. I go into that in some of the training. But yeah, I think the CAT tool guys have a big problem right now, is how are they going to maintain relevance when segment by segment is no longer state of the art. State of the art is page by page, paragraph by paragraph, and you don't need to you don't need the CAT tool for a lot of that. All right, then I'll keep on going. Where are we at? Oh, we're doing fine on time, I'm sure. Okay. So, all right. So those were that was the basics. That was the aspects of the software from the main interface there that you can use manually and powerfully in your work. But the next thing that really powers that up is being able to build your own library of prompts. I've seen a lot of implementations of the AI, ChatGPT, in various tools, and they have all these options. Make longer, make shorter, rewrite for formality, whatever. But those are really such narrow, blunt. Uh, a few prompts, a list of 10 different prompts to choose from is kind of cool. But what if you could, you know, do a deep dive into your use cases in your language pairs and your subject matters and your documents that you work on, and really fine-tune prompts that work just for you. And that's what you can do here, is you can build your own. You're not using what everybody else, what others have determined they think are useful to you. You're determining what's useful to you in using these. Concerning CAT tools, how to use the ad hoc prompt in a CAT tool. That one is a limitation. We haven't gotten to that yet. At some point, it would be nice to integrate the ad hoc prompt with the shortcuts so that you can work in the CAT tool, and that is not currently supported. But I will say, well, if you're getting out of the CAT tool anyway, and I just did it while I was waiting for this meeting to start. I had a 2-page translation that was in a CAT tool. I exported it out from MemoQ to an RTF file. I just took the entire thing, cut and pasted it into the AI, got the output back, pasted it back in, and it was short enough that everything would fit in the context that I could in one context. So that meant that everything was consistent. So if I didn't like a term at the beginning, it was going to use the same term at the end, but it was still consistent. So yeah. All right. So Martin says perhaps the advantage of working on a segment basis in a CAT tool is that you can choose when to use your AI and related credit. Well, first of all, cost is not really an issue. When you're going, segment by segment as a translator, you're not talking about big volumes here. But yeah, I mean, you go segment by segment, you might decide you don't need to use the CAT tool for this segment. You might frankly, it's already in the TM or something. So yeah, I mean, you've got the flexibility to use it however you want. All right, so so this is the prompt library. So if you look at CoTranslator, you've got a button over here, select prompt. All right, that brings up the prompt library. Now, if you've just installed the software, you don't have all these prompts like I do. What you have is you've got, this is what it looks like. You've got a folder of template prompts, and you've got an empty My Prompts folder. All right. When you create your own prompts, put them in the My Prompts folder, because here's the rationale we have. The logic we're working with is the templates are provided by us. They are clever little tutorials on various use cases, which we over time will improve and expand. I've already got one in mind. I just haven't gotten around to writing it, but there are those could change at any time during an upgrade. So if you really like them, go, and you want to be sure nothing bad happens in that exact bad happens, nothing bad's going to happen. But if you don't want any changes, then you can save those templates outside and you still have them. But within the templates folder, we reserve the right to change and add and do whatever we want. When the My Prompts folder is your domain, and that's where you put whatever your prompts are. So you can even copy the templates folder, the templates prompts over to the My Prompts folder, and you'll be good to go. They'll be yours there too. So you can see that I have separated mine into just all kinds of stuff, translation applications, writing use cases, editing, communications, project specific, and then some others. And so, yeah, so you've got these over here. All right, so let me go back to the presentation, make sure. Yeah, so if you select one of the prompts, and while we're on your system, since you don't have any in the My Prompts folder, you could do the same. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Hold on, I lost my place. Oh, what page was I on? There we go. Okay. So you could just go down to the templates folder and click those. So if you click on those, it will then show you in the right-hand side the text of the prompt itself. And then there are several settings that you can custom do. You can, if you do nothing with them, you'll get the defaults. But if you have done something with it, and we'll get to it later, then you can it'll show you what those settings were. So from there, you've got several buttons. One, refresh prompts, is if you've made any changes lately, you could click this button and make sure that the list is current. But beyond that, there are three things. You can select a prompt and then open that prompt file, and that will open it up in your text reader, which is probably Notepad, Windows Notepad, unless you've picked a different one. You can navigate to the file, which will go to the file on your system in Microsoft Explorer, and see where that file is and all the ones around it. And then Open Prompts folder kind of almost does the same thing, but it opens the whole prompts folder grouping in Windows Explorer. So I'm going to do that on my side so you can see how that works. So here we go. So we click on that. All right, so let's say I wanted this translate fuzzy match. Okay, so I clicked on that, and I've got my prompt text. Looks like I've decided I want GPT-4 on this one, which means that if I give you that one, it'll cause an error on your end if you don't have access. But okay, so you can open the file in a text editor. All right, let me open that. All right, hold on. It opened it up in Notepad. So that's what the whole thing looks like. All right, so these prompts are just text files. That's all they are, is text files in a Windows directory. So I've navigated to the file. So that when I did that, it opened up to my CoTranslator folder, and then under that is prompts, My Prompts, and then you can do 3 levels of subfolders. So I've got under translation, and it shows you the text file. So if I double click on that, I'm just in a very familiar Windows environment that that we're all familiar with. So that is how you can get to those files. All right, let's go to the next page. Stop me if I'm going too fast. Okay, so now here's what your list of prompts might include. Well, you've kind of already seen it on in my directory with all these, but this is just a you know, the sky's the limit on how many you can do. I mean, be more creative than me. Some of these are kind of dumb. I don't even use some of them at all or very often. But I mean, this is the kind of thing you have a library for all your use cases. Okay, so we've done that one. Okay, fine. So let's see how this works now. So we've got a let's just go ahead and pick this one. Translate. Let's not do that one. Come to think, but let's do. Trying to find one that I can. Okay, rewrite as a full sentence. I don't like that one either. It's just fine. Let's just do this one. Toggle translate English and Korean. All right. So by selecting it, by selecting that one and selecting prompt, it brings it up in the instructions window. And so now, if this one works, if I put in Korean, and just so you know, Korean and English is my language pair. So, all right, it translated to English. But if I had to put English in there, well, hello, then it should translate it to Korean. It did. Look at that. It worked. So this particular prompt, it does whatever it's not. So with this one, you could get, instead of having to have two prompts, one to translate one language to the other, you could have one prompt and having two prompts, one to do one direction, one to do another, with a well-written prompt. And this is nothing special, but a better written prompt would even be more reliable. You could do both directions with one prompt. That's kind of versatile, right? You'd only have to remember one shortcut key if you wanted to be able to do it whenever. All right, so by clicking on any one there, and you can do the same thing with the template prompts. I can get to those later on why they're there, but for now, you can click on any one in that list. Click, actually, I think it says select prompt now. In this graphic here, it said okay. It is selected. Okay, so once you click that, click select prompt, it is inserted into the top here. And then, of course, you're not stuck with that. You can edit it now. I mean, if that's not exactly what you want for this particular use case, you could have a generic prompt that then you want to update as you go. In fact, I have one right here, and I use it all the time, which is translate fuzzy match. So it gives me a template. So now, in order, and I'll tell you, GPT is incredibly useful with fuzzy matches. If you're not using it for that, you're missing out, especially some hard ones. And I'm talking, 60%, 70% fuzzy matches, you can get almost perfect almost every time. And so even when they're long. So anyway, so I have a template for this one. So by calling it up from the library, it inputs it in there. Then I put my, my fuzzy match source and target. Then I put my new source that's a fuzzy match of those two, and bang, I run it and I get my output. All right. So let's see. All right, so these different buttons, and I've already covered the buttons. Fine. Okay, so is everybody still following me? I haven't lost you yet. Okay, good. That's good news. So so developing your prompt library over time, I've kind of alluded to this earlier, is that you keep building this library, making it bigger and bigger, not necessarily bigger and bigger, better and better. Bigger isn't always better, but you can refine your prompts, have them available, and so I just keep on. Okay, so we've already done these buttons. There's quite a bit of repetition here. And alas, I need to restructure it a bit. All right, so the prompts and these prompt files are actually text files in Windows Explorer. There's no difference between those two. You double click it and you can open it up in Notepad. Okay, we've done that one. Okay, so let's say you wanted to create a new, let's just go through the process of a new creating a new one. So we come over here, and let's say we want to make a new one to translate English to Spanish. So let's just open our prompts folder. We already did. Okay. So we'll come over here to my prompts, and let's just create a new one here at the bottom. You're just going to create a new text file. So all you have to do, and it's be translate to Spanish. All right. That was all right. So we've created a text file. We pull it up, and we enter our prompt. Now there's some various codes you can put in it at a more advanced level, which if we have time we'll get to. But at the basic level, you just put it in there. Just your really simple stuff. So translate the following text to Spanish. All right, great. So we got that. We created that prompt. All right. So there it is. All right. So it's a good idea to refresh your prompts. And look at that. It's now showing up in the list. We can see what the text is. We haven't made any done any customizations. And if we select it, it now shows up here. And now we could immediately go over to our to grab some text from somewhere else, and probably guess. Anyway, you can go over to text somewhere else and select it and run your. You can type it in here, of course, but you can also use your use those shortcuts I mentioned earlier and start translating. All right. So, so deleting a prompt that you don't need anymore is again just as simple as deleting a text file. So here's a test prompt. I'm sure I don't need it. You just delete it and it's gone. All right. So if you saw it, it should be there now. Yeah, it's gone already, right? So deleting and adding prompts. You can add subfolders. You can add like whatever. So fine. All right. So that's how the prompt library works. All right. We're making good time. We're getting through it quite well. Now, the custom shortcuts is yet one more level of efficiency that you can add to your workflow in a really powerful way, because you can assign any shortcut to any prompt. So you write whatever prompt you want, you put it in your prompt library, and then you assign a shortcut, any shortcut you want, and then it will run. And it's important to remember that the CoTranslator AI companion app is the interface between the main CoTranslator app and the text anywhere else in Windows that needs to be transferred back and forth. Now, I remember when I suggested this to as being a clever feature for the app for Stanislav, I thought it was a really simple operation that would be a short afternoon's work, and we'd have a nice new feature. It turns out it's not that simple. It's really quite complicated, and we're still fine-tuning it so it works more reliably. And so, but the interface is this. If you go to your task tray on the right, and don't confuse task tray with task bar, right? This here in my task bar is the main CoTranslator app. But if this over on the right side, this little bitty icon here is the companion app. And it really doesn't do anything visible. It's all in the background. It just manages the shortcuts. It is the bridge between it. So here's how those work. Okay. At the beginning of any prompt file, you simply add this code, square bracket shortcut equals, and then you've got a key combination. And the key combination needs to have at least one modifier key: Control, Alt, Shift, or Win. And you can have more than one, as I've shown you. And then after that, you can choose from any of the function keys 0 to 9, A to Z. You know, the list is huge. So and you separate each one with a plus. All right. So the reason that we did Control Alt Shift F12 was I couldn't imagine that that would overlap with any other program's shortcut key until we found out that apparently in Excel there is a small uh, conflict there, but in general, yeah, you could pick whatever you want. So if you know what combination would work best for you for this particular one, you can assign it. All right, so these so we're going to add this in a minute. So if you look, you will see that I have shortcut keys showing. It shows in the list of the library when there is a shortcut key. So if I click on this one, for example, this one is Control Shift Alt F4, toggle translate. I've got another one here, translate Korean addresses to English using the Korean form, Control Shift Alt F9. And so I've got a whole bunch of these really, and I can run them with the with the shortcut keys that are assigned to them. So let's do one. So let's say this one for translate the following text to Spanish. All right. Let's come down here. How would we implement this? So we come over here. You can see that there's no shortcut key assigned to it now. So let's open the file in a text editor. All right. So we're going to open it up, and we're going to simply put an open bracket shortcut equals, all right, and then we can choose what we want. So I just am kind of in the habit of just doing Control Shift, seems least likely to conflict with something, Alt, and let's just do, I don't know, T. Now let's do S for Spanish. That'll be easy to remember. All right, so we got Control Shift Alt S, translate the following to Spanish. All right, so we've saved it. Now here's one small thing you have to remember. You're not going to be updating these all that often, but when you do, you must let the companion app know that you did that by coming over here and you right click on the icon, reload quick prompts. When you do that, it will then it'll then update it here. So it's now, the system now knows that you have one for Control Shift Alt S. All right, let me find a document here that I can just play with that won't have.
Yes, Steven, one thing you need to reload shortcuts via the companion app. So you can when you refresh prompts, so when you click refresh prompts button in CotranslatorAI, it only refreshes the file structure, the prompt structure in this dialog. But you do have to, if you assign some shortcut key to any prompt, and then you want immediately to take advantage of this shortcut, then you have to reload prompts using the companion application from the tray area.
That's a good point. I mean, if you create a shortcut key and then don't update it through the companion app, but shut down the software and come back tomorrow, it'll know about it then. It's just if you want to start using it right away that you're going to have the issue. Right. Thanks for pointing that out. All right. So for example, let's just say we've been doing something else over here for a while with other prompts, but we still have our Spanish one, and we want to translate to Spanish. So I got a document here that I was working with on the recent boot camp we were working on. So let's say, for example, I've got this document. All right. So I've got, and I want to do some stuff with it. So let me get this text a little bigger so you can see it. All right. So for example, I have one here. Well, let's just start with I've got one here. It says, all it does is rewrite a text arbitrarily. I don't even tell it how to do it. I just say, just write it a different way. All right. And I have that one on Control Shift Alt F5. All right. Let's see what we get. Instructions for boot camp week 1. So we changed it from boot camp, week 1 boot camp instructions. Okay, that was cool. All right, so let's just say over here I want to translate it to Spanish. Now remember, we just did we just created it, so it's Control Shift Alt S. All right, so it just popped in that that one, and look at that. We translated with the shortcut. All right, so let's see. We come down here. I mean, I'm not saying there would ever be a use for that, but let's say we want to translate this one to Korean. Well, I have my toggle prompt that I showed you earlier, which was Control Shift Alt F4. I have it written on a piece of paper in front of me to help me to remember them. And okay, I didn't like it. I'm sorry, but I need the text of the exercise videos you want me to translate. Where did that come from? Okay, so it failed. It didn't work. It happens too. I don't know why it did that. That was a weird answer. Repeat the process. Huh, it looks like it didn't copy over, so for some reason. Let's just try it again.
It did copy over, but you can see that you have another instruction in the segment, and basically maybe it overrides somewhat.
That's exactly what happened. So what it did was, okay, the AI got confused. I said translate the following text, but then I said it to translate another command, and it didn't realize that that was supposed to be translated. It thought I was giving another command and got confused. All right, but you know, you can do the whole paragraph as well. Let's see if it works better the second time. All right, let's so we shoot it over. Translate it should go into Korean for us if we're lucky. And okay, it's actually using the GPT-4 model, which is slower, but it shouldn't, it's not usually this slow. And we'll sit here for a little while. I'll continue on because this is embarrassing. So that happens. Let's just keep going. So what you can also do is, if you want to see the it finally made it through, actually. Okay, so it finally did translate for us. So if you want to come over here, you can look at your kind of an index of all your current prompts by tools shortcut list, and it includes the 3 that are preset for it, but it also has a list of all the ones that you may have created for whatever application you wanted to use it for. All right. Okay, so then there are also several more advanced codes that you can use, which you'll want to know about. The one that's the most interesting to the most people is the temperature setting, and the temperature setting is a setting of randomness. So if you have a temperature setting of 0, you would expect basically consistent responses from prompt to prompt. Each time you run it, you should expect to get the same responses or close to it. If you set the temperature to 1, you would expect much more varied responses. And so if you're trying to do creative writing, you might prefer the temperature prompt of 1. If you're trying to translate a technical document, you're going to want that temperature setting of 0. And in my experience, 0 is usually the right number for just about everything.
Just a small note. Basically, OpenAI, that there are many parameters in OpenAI, and some of those parameters you can actually enter in the configuration file, and these will be the defaults. And for the prompts, you can override those default parameters, specifically the temperature. You don't only get the option of 0 or 1. You whatever is in between is a decimal number. So for example, 0.1 is a bit over 0 but less than 1. 0.2 is a higher randomness. 0.3 is higher than 0.1, etc. So basically that's how you can configure something not 0 but also not 1.
I guess it could go to two decimal places, 3 decimal places. I mean, there's
I
mean, in theory, I mean, it's not limited to just 1 decimal place, right? But I mean, I haven't seen that there's going to be much use to going beyond 1 decimal place. Anyway, so what you can do, okay, you can pick your model. Now, in your case right now, there are 2 choices. There's, well, the CotranslatorAI shows 3. The 4 one, like I said, unless you have access to it from OpenAI, it won't work. You've got the 3.5, and then you've got the 3. The 3 really needs to be deprecated because it's old, and well, old in terms of like as in 6 months old, not old as in any longer than that. So, 6 months ago, when ChatGPT hit the world by storm, this was the model. Now 3.5 is the one that is most common.
Stephen, it is just 3.5 or 3.5 turbo? Because I tried the higher volume model with 16 kilos, and it still informed me that there is only available for 4,096 tokens.
Okay.
So it is only 3.5. It is some older version.
Okay, I'm glad you asked that. Okay, so what they have done, and we have kept it as simple as possible by just writing it this way. There are actually multiple 3.5 models based on when it was released, and people who want to stay on a particular 3.5 model, the one from April 15 rather than the one from May 2nd, can specifically choose that. However, what we have here, this setting, Stanislav can correct me if I'm wrong, this is the turbo model, and the turbo model, this setting means that as long as it's set on this setting, it will automatically update to the latest 3.5 version available at that time. So a few weeks ago, they released an upgrade to the 3.5 model, that the turbo model, that takes more tokens at once. And as long as you may use this model that it's set on, that will be the one you get automatically. It will upgrade automatically over time.
Yes, but where is access to the new model? Because this model, which is incorporated in this version, in the newest version of CotranslatorAI, allows only 4,000 only 4,096 tokens as before. There is no possibility to enter 16,000 tokens. I checked it 15 minutes ago.
Yeah, okay, so basically we simplified the naming conventions here on the user interface. Basically, use GPT-3.5 means use GPT-3.5 turbo model. And OpenAI, they they release new models, they upgrade their models, but chat 3.5 turbo, the way it's called, it's constantly updated with the latest developments, and they whatever was the model behind this name is then renamed to some other name. For example, it could be after the update, it could be called chat-3.5-turbo 0606 or something like that. Usually they use the dates and the month as in their names of those previous models.
Well, Stanislav, I think what Vladimir is saying though is that they announced an upgrade to the 3.5 model a few months ago, or a few weeks ago, in terms of token size, but he's not seeing it. He's not seeing that we're getting that through the API.
I checked it in CoTranslator. I checked it in ChatGPT, and it stills both stills remain on the old volume, which was 4096. So the basic question is, as you said, you should the CoTranslator should automatically take the latest model of 3.5, but obviously it doesn't, or also ChatGPT. So if you don't know about access to this GPT 3.5 16K turbo 16K 0603 or what the name is exactly. The newest.
Yeah, well, I think there is a reason why they, add those additional characters. It means it's maybe a less tested model or something like that. But it's if you go to the API on the website, or if you go to some other areas where usually basically in this platform.openai.com, you get the playground, and you can also
Playground also accept more than 4,000. I checked it also on Playground.
Okay, yeah, we need to check that, but basically what we do in CotranslatorAI, we don't upgrade every day to whatever they change their models. We only use the kind of the model they publicize as the latest one.
Yeah.
And this is the chat -3.5 but obviously they are going to release newer ones, and if they name it something else, you're not going to get access to that unless you change the configuration file in CotranslatorAI. You go to the configuration file and you can change the model, and you can change the default model, which is chat-3.5-turbo, to another model which you want to access. But by default, we're using those simplified model. And currently, I haven't seen OpenAI saying that they advise everyone to transfer to switch over to another model.
No, but I also said, Stefan, you also received the email from OpenAI that they are introducing the model. I got it also. So it is probably not accessible in this point.
There's the possibility that they announce stuff. No, actually, I specifically remember that one saying that everybody has access as of today. So I don't know how to respond to that. OpenAI will do what they'll do, I guess.
As always.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
But I will say that the way it's set up is that you should have this model should update to the latest 3.5 automatically over time.
Yeah. Okay, so we will wait. Okay, thank you.
All right, so there are a few more things, and I won't go into all the details. This is described on the website in the user manual page, but you can actually add HTML style comments to a prompt files so that you can add, you can kind of set aside a section for like alternatives, for other examples, for a description of what you're doing. In the template files, you'll find that's where I keep the tutorial content. And so you can add a lot more to the file in addition to the fundamental prompt, the basic prompt, in order to for it to be more useful and just to keep more information there if you want. As Stanislav was saying, that you can pick the model, and there's the old models. This is a little bit out of date. There are actually many models you can choose from. I don't know why you would ever choose one other than the 3.5 turbo or 4.0 if you can get it. But if you were so inclined, you could go on to OpenAI's website and see all the models they have available if you want the old stuff. Here's where you would set the temperature, and it could be any number between 0 and 1, including decimals. And then this is one that, whether it's obsolete or not, I don't know, but I have found that, for example, okay, actually, you saw, for example, the issue we had a moment ago, where I ran the translation and there was the prompt to translate, but then the text to be translated looked like more instructions and confused the AI. Stop markers can help with that. Well, quotes would have helped as well, but stop markers help. And especially there are cases where you want to run a prompt just on like 3 or 4 words within a sentence. Maybe you want to switch the prepositions around, or you want to change, just fix this one word. And sometimes the AI gets confused and tries to finish your sentence. Like if you're only acting on the first 3 words of a sentence, and it thinks, oh, well, what should come after this? And it finishes what it thinks that sentence should say and then runs the prompt, which is not what you want at all. Stop markers can keep it from doing that. So the option is here. I have a couple of prompts that use them. You can get information on the OpenAI documentation about them as well if you want. Back to quick prompts again, back to making sure you do your CoTranslator companion app update. There's a playground. Stanislav mentioned that a moment ago in your OpenAI account, where you can just mess with stuff with the settings and all that. Is if you did want to study it, just kind of play around in there a little bit more. Okay, so that's it. That is okay. Well, actually, I'm glad I kept going. One more. If you have issues with CoTranslator, it's helpful, of course, to get the screenshot of your error message and what have you, but it's also really helpful to get the logs and to know what you were doing when that happened, what software you were in, if possible, the prompt you were using, and what the environment was that to cause that, because we need to be able to, or Stanislav needs to be able to reproduce that environment and that error in order to debug it. So if you go into the top of CoTranslator at the top and under help, you can troubleshooting. Number one is it kind of gives you instructions on what he'd like to get from you when you report it. And then 2, he definitely wants the open logs. He definitely wants the logs files. So if you click that, it'll automatically open in Windows to those files, those log files, so that you can easily get to them and send them in when you submit a report. So